Hey guys, I'm going to take you for a really quick virtual walking tour in New Haven so that I can point out some of the different elements that characterize the Victorian architectural style. So first, the number one standout characteristic for me of the Italianate Victorians is that bracket. The bracket holding up the roof line. So the Italianate Victorians have a very low sloped roof line, which means it's not steeply pitched. So really either almost see a flat roof or just a very low pitched roof. But the brackets that are holding that up, this sort of L shape, that's the main thing that really signals Italianate Victorian to me. In this case, it's on the brownstone variation of an Italianate. So those are the brownstone style row of townhomes. Here's another example of the Italianate Victorian in a brownstone version. Again, you see those brackets holding up the roof at the top. Italianate Victorians also we can see in a single family home version. So the standout characteristic that immediately signals this is Italianate Victorian to me is this square tower on the center of the top. Here's a couple of other versions. So these are a little bit more simplified in terms of the style of the house, but we talked about the characteristic porches, and you see also the square tower on the top. So again, the columned porches, the square towers on the top, and the images, or the image on the right-hand side, I think it's a little bit easier to see even. You see those brackets, and in almost all cases, you're going to see those brackets along the roof line, particularly on that square tower. They're just a little bit easier to see in that particular image. Again, some more Italianate Victorians. Sometimes we don't see the square tower as that little centerpiece, but we see a full tower rising all of the stories of the house. So that's still considered an Italianate Victorian. But again, if you see that square tower, dead giveaway, Italianate Victorian. And here again, you can see all of the many, many brackets holding up that very flat, nearly flat, low-pitched roof line. This is also an Italianate Victorian. It's a very large version, but again, with that square tower going all the way up the several floors of the full building. This is another style. So the mansard Victorian is where we talked about the very steeply pitched roof, where you can actually see the roof, the shingles and things like that. So there's a few characteristics that might feel confusing. You still see the brackets, things like that. Why is this not Italianate? And it's because of that mansard roof. So if you see the low flat roof, you know that that's probably going to be Italianate. If you see this very steeply pitched roof, you'll automatically say that's a mansard style Victorian. Here are two more examples. And this is an individual single family home, although like a monstrous one. It's a mansion. The thing with the mansard style Victorians is it always kind of has a little bit of that like Addams Family vibe going on for it, but it's got the really steeply pitched roof. And you might see those brackets and things like that and the columned porches, but the roof is the giveaway for the mansard terminology. Gingerbread Victorians are what we also refer to as the painted ladies. So if you remember from like Full House, where you see the row of painted houses in San Francisco that was in our lecture, those are the gingerbread style Victorians. So the aniline dyes that were invented during the Victorian time period, where we're not using natural vegetable pigments anymore, but we have these like really vivid colors because we have man-made chemical dyes now that we can make really bright paint. They used it in total excess. So they're painting like every little detail a different color. And we talked about a man named Eastlake on the interior where we saw that with the different areas of all of the trim and painting all the tiny little details, different colors. So the gingerbread Victorians do that on the exterior. And that might be something, if you've ever been to Cape May in New Jersey, there are lots of gingerbread Victorians there as well. The Carpenter Gothic Victorian is a style that has a lot of carved woodwork. But the main characteristic, the standout thing to me that is sort of the dead giveaway that it's Carpenter Gothic, is it's going to have very pointy angles to it. So steep pitched roofs, pointy window openings, and the reason why we call it Gothic is oftentimes that point actually has a bit of a curve, which is called a Gothic arch, which is different than a Roman arch, which is a completely rounded arch. That would be something we might see on the Italianate style, which makes sense. Roman arch, Italianate style. Here we see a Gothic arch, it's the Gothic style. The carpenter part just refers to the fact that there's a lot of elaborately carved woodwork that goes into these as well. This is also a Gothic Victorian, and so you don't see all of the carved woodwork, but it's still considered a Gothic Victorian. You see the pointed arch in the doorway, we see leaded glass in the windows, and it has all of those Gothic-inspired details to it. The Queen Anne Victorian is probably my favorite. It's totally absurd, it's asymmetrical, there's towers, there's turrets, there's bay windows, there's projections. It's a very interesting style to look at from the exterior. Kind of makes it feel like an ant farm on the interior because there's all these little broken up spaces. But it's a very unique style, and all of those different projections and the asymmetry of it all is the dead giveaway for that Queen Anne Victorian style. Here you see a couple of more. Again, the turrets, the bay windows, the projections. The one on the left actually has this really interesting feature where the tower goes up and it has this big dome on the bottom. So it's this really unexpected, bizarre detail. But all of this sort of asymmetry, where you can't draw a line down the middle of the house and fold it in half and have it be the same on both sides, totally asymmetrical. Here's a few more Queen Anne Victorians. These have a lot of other characteristics of the Queen Anne Victorians where we see a lot of different types of materials. So you might see straight siding, scallop siding, all sorts of different trim patterns and things like that that add to sort of that asymmetrical, very chaotic look of the Queen Anne Victorians. This is the last house I'm going to show you. This is also Queen Anne Victorian. It's a little bit more subdued, but it's still considered Queen Anne Victorian because it has those projections, the turrets, its asymmetry. So hopefully you can see all of the different elements that we've talked about in the lecture, see how they're sort of applied in real life, and when you drive around you can just like annoy all your friends now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the tour. Bye.